Welcome, everybody. We are so delighted that you're joining us today for an amazing conversation with a special guest, Jaime Tanna, who is the founder of Energy Therapy and Total Frequency Shift and has nearly 20 years of experience teaching thousands of clients and students, both online and in person. As a medical health intuitive, Reiki master, sound healer, and master dowser, his work blends deep intuitive wisdom with practical guidance. Welcome, Jaime. This is going to be such a great conversation.
Thanks, Keesha. I'm very happy to be here with you today.
So I always think everybody has a life story that gets them to where they are in terms of embodying their gift. And you are clearly very gifted and have a lot of beautiful talents to help people in their path of healing. So I would love to hear, if you don't mind, sharing with us how you got to be doing what you do today.
So it's quite an interesting story. I was working in London in a nice, quote unquote, safe, secure job in the .com industry. And I was working as a designer developer and really didn't have any plans for this career path or life path or calling. And really what happened was a series of, you could call them coincidences, or you could call it the universe waking me up or trying to get my attention. So my father at the time actually became very ill and he collapsed and went into a coma for a few days, and he had an intracranial bleed. And really I was looking for a way to heal him after the initial shock, of course, because I was like, what's going on? And it was my first encounter with a big life change. And at the same time, the company I was working for was bought out and relocated. So it was complete chaos in my life. But the wonderful thing that came out of that, what I would call piece of contrast, was that all these synchronicities happened. So the word Reiki kept coming up, and I found a couple of masters that were doing distant healing. And it was very interesting because what happened was they gave me information that later was verified by the medical profession. So they were telling me things, a couple of them were very psychic, and they told me things about his biology or what was going on internally with him. And then I would see it in the medical report, a couple of weeks later. So I was like, wow, there's something really specific in this information here, and there's not woo-woo. I need to look more into this. And actually what's very interesting was they also said to me, and by the way, you're supposed to be doing this work. Which is quite interesting. So that made me kind of sort of perk up. And the wonderful thing was when I went to actually do these kind of small courses initially, I just kind of put my toe in the water. I just fell in love with it. It was just bread and butter to me. It was, energy. I'd grown up doing Raja Yoga with my grandmother on my mum's side. She's from Trinidad and Tobago. And she'd given me all these books on the mind-body connection well before it was trendy. So this is in the 80s, early 80s. And I was growing up as a young kid, 6, 7, and then as I got older, this is fast forward now, in my 20s when this thing happened with my dad. I'd already had that introduction, and I'd also done martial arts, so I was fairly aware of the energy behind things, but I just hadn't looked at it deeply in a mindful way. So really, it was an opportunity for me to step out of the sort of boxed paradigm, and then it sort of took me on a journey, really. And from that journey, that one path then branched out into many things. So that's how I got into, for example, dowsing for health, which was at the time very fascinating to me. And it was working with the quantum field. So it was called spiritual response therapy and spiritual restructuring or energetic restructuring. And then I was guided into sound and using the voice. So it was really that one thread or one sutra that then branched out and became a much more encompassing field. But I just started with that one sort of little entry point, as it were.
How did things work out with your dad?
He recovered and from the hospital. He came out of the coma, and he had a big challenge actually in terms of his mental health, because really when you have organic brain damage, it makes you moody, it makes you irritable, as well as the physical trauma, there's that kind of mental, emotional component. So it was actually quite a hard time for him, but also for my mum and also for me, because dealing with it, it was an uphill battle, really. And so it was a slow process, but it really shifted his consciousness over time, I would say. So my father actually passed away last year, and what I noticed with him before he passed was that he had an awakening in a way. He'd had a complete reorientation of his being and a flowering of his consciousness, because before he was in this kind of box medical paradigm. I come from a medical family of pharmacists and doctors, and my dad was a pharmacist. And as he became more open, he was more interested in really what was going on under the hood, and he stopped looking at things in a reductionist way. So that path actually was very beneficial to his soul.
Beautiful. So you work with dowsing, and you talked about really enjoying the learning that you were entering as you were putting your toe in the water. What was it like when you first picked up a pendulum and started using it?
That's a very good question, and a very interesting question, because that was one of the pieces of feedback from the universe. It was like a biochemical reaction in my body. It was like a full visceral response. So I remember it was I'd already been doing hands-on healing called Tenohira in Reiki, and I'd done the Western system, which is with Takata, and I'd also done the Western system, and I'd done the Eastern training. So I'd done both aspects of Reiki. And then I remember sitting in the room with my Reiki master, and it was actually to do with my life, the question. And we'd sort of tuned in, and she was saying, well, it's probably time for you to start doing this more seriously. Is spirit's guiding you, or the universe is guiding you? And then she said, let's use the pendulum and see. So a pendulum, for anyone who hasn't dowsed, is a common dowsing tool. And it just, it can be used for very subtle information dowsing. You can ask a lot of questions about, if you have a client, it would be the client or the patient, and you can calibrate responses. But in this instance, it was just a simple, yes, no response. So it wasn't like a huge dowsing experience, but the visceral reaction, because I knew consciously in my mind, she was like, ask if it meets with the higher flow, or it meets with your highest good, if you should step into this path right now professionally. And so when I picked up the pendulum, and I got this massive yes, and it was it's a subconscious reflex, the micro motor response, that the whole body is a transmitter receiver of energy and information. And quantum science has shown that we are constantly receiving energy from the field. So at that time, which was in the early 2000s, 2004, I picked up that pendulum, and because the body response was so strong, I was kind of like hypnotized by it, and I was also a little bit in fear, because it was like, oh, here we go. Okay, I'm getting this message, and I have to listen to it. So it was like, go step over the boundary from safe and secure and boxed, and everybody accepts you, into this paradigm where it's a little bit more like murky, and what will my parents think, and all those programs that go with stepping into your true path. And it wasn't that my parents didn't want me to do what I want to, didn't want to support me, but the traditional kind of so Indian or Indo-Caribbean family is like, you go to school or college or university, and then you go and you get that decent job that provides you with safety and security. And I was listening to Jay Shetty the other day. I really like him, actually. He's got some similarities to me, and he's a great guy. And it's funny because he's an Indian, he's Anglo-Indian, or he's British Indian, I should say, actually. And it was funny because he said, I'll do an Indian accent, it's quite funny actually, but he said in Indian families, it's doctor, lawyer, or failure. I was laughing because it just resonated with me. It was that whole kind of, there's like these two categories, and then anything else, whether it's Reiki master or artist or painter or, musician is not, it says doctor, lawyer, failure. And I thought, God, that's so true. So it's just making me laugh when I just listening to his audiobook, and just, yeah, it was that kind of energy for me as well. I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So I've got to look at this and just own my intuition, own my gut feeling here.
It's very interesting because we can think of it as coming out, is the way that I thought about it when I came out of my Western, medical model that I'd been trained in and worked in for so long, and then started, you said, this isn't woo-woo a little earlier. And I thought, yeah, we, still categorizing something as woo-woo or not woo-woo. And that we are so imprinted by the culture that we're raised in, and this desire to have people look on whatever it is we're doing with approval. And one of the things when I teach my Reiki students is that there's going to be imposter syndrome that comes in. And doesn't matter what area of life that you're in as you're beginning something new, and being able to take that little child part of you and you approve of them and not worry about what everybody else, the coming out of the medical closet for me was a little hairy, scary also, that I was going to be called a quack. I had to go to therapy to publish my first book. And I thought, oh my gosh, because scientists, like the whole reductionist model that we base everything on is, evidence-based medicine, where you match the symptom with the drug, and, and we assume that everybody's the same and they're going to respond the same to those medications. And actually, that's not accurate. We're not the same. We're all very different. And so it's a very interesting transition to get from one side of that river to the next, and to be able to just stand in your power. And I applaud you for your process of getting there. It's a little scary to have your little child parts going, wait, no, we can't do that. They're not going to like it. So well done. And for people that are wanting to kickstart their own healing journey, and what we're talking about is part of that healing journey, moving the locus of control from external, where we need everybody outside of us to take responsibility for us, to internal, where we are taking responsibility now for our own gifts and our own life path and journey, your dharma. And, that included in that will be layers and layers of awakening. So how can our viewers work with you to start where they're at on their path towards that awakening process and healing?
What I'd like to do, Keesha, is lead people through an experiential aspect of this talk, and sort of take them into their sort of inner dimension of consciousness, which is, we are interconnected in that way. So just coming into that inner balance, that sense of what I would call spirit, or the conscious universe that exists within us and all around us. And so really, for me, the body is the receiver transmitter of all information and energy. And so what I'll do is I'll use a little bit of sound, and then we'll do just a basic breathing technique with everyone here. And then I just want to, if people have, like, if you don't have a pendulum, you can just use, if you have a chain and it has a little sort of a pendant on the end and it's got a little bit of a weight, you could use that. Or you can just have a button on a string. But, jewelry is quite useful because it's just lying around usually. And if you, rather than trying to make one up right now. And we can just have a little bit of an experience here to show that everybody has the ability to learn to, to consciously receive that information, that guidance through the dowsing mechanism, which is really powerful because it's that immediate feedback. So I've just got my bajin here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that on a yoga block. And it's a very beautiful instrument, so hopefully the sound will carry through. So just close your eyes wherever you are. Take a deep breath in and exhale and sigh. And just let go of anything that you might be holding on to. Again, breathe in, lift the shoulders up to the ears, draw the shoulder blades down the back, let the arms relax, and exhale. And then one more breath in, let the front, the sides, and the back of the ribcage expand. And a gentle exhale, maybe sighing if you wish. And then begin to listen to the sound of the bhajin. Let the sound arise from the stillness, and let your attention follow the sound until it fades. And just notice that the sound is arising and then taking you back to the formless, the inner dimension of yourself. And as you listen to the sounds, begin to imagine a light shining on top of your crown, on top of your head, and begin to draw that light and energy down through the crown into the face. Allow the face to soften, the jaw muscles to soften. Let the light spiral down into the jaw, into the neck. Let it go into the upper chest and the back. Let it move down the arms and the torso of the body. Let it move into the heart, center of the chest, heart chakra, and down into the ribs, into the lower belly, the internal organs there. Let the light move downwards still further into the sexual centers at the base of the spine. And let the light move into the buttocks, into the tailbone. Feel connected through your sitting bones to the seat. And let the light move downwards into the legs. Let it move down through the knees, into the calf muscles, into the ankles, into the feet and the bones of the feet. And then let the light spiral further downwards below you into the ground. Let it spiral further downwards with your imagination. Let it go down into the core of the earth, if that's there for you. Otherwise, just stay with the feeling of light moving through the physical body. And then just affirm your oneness with your inner self, your inner being. So you might like to say, I am one with spirit. That's there for you. Otherwise, just acknowledging that you are more than just the physical. And then when you feel ready, feeling that inner aliveness of the body, that inner energy inside of you, draw your attention back to the space where you are in the here and now. And notice that you're more present, more connected, and more grounded in the space right now. And then I'd like to just demonstrate with you just a very simple, interesting experiment that you can try at home. So with the dowsing response, the key is to allow the body to move and to follow the movement of the pendulum. So you don't need to hold your hand or your arm very, very stiffly, okay? It's about just being relaxed. So the first thing you could do is to understand that it's not, I'm going to show you the opposite. So you could do this for yourself. If you hold the pendulum and you just say, show me a yes, you're trying to move it with your mind, with your conscious mind. I've been dowsing for a long time, so it will just move. That's actually not what you want, because then you're doing conscious control. Same with no. So if I say move no, I'm telling it to do it. So left to right is no. Just as you would do with your head. So this is no, and this is yes. So just a basic signal. So that's moving the pendulum with mind force or mind control. So that's not what you want. What you really want to do is be relaxed and have a communication with your higher self, and that energy or that inner being communicates with you through your body, and there's these minute micro muscles that move with the pendulum. So the wrist moves, the fingers move very slightly. So it's not about trying to prove it to anybody else. That's the most important thing. So I'm going to lift my arm up, but you want to keep your arm nice and relaxed. So if you have the length of the pendulum needs to be maybe half of this, I would say. It shouldn't be too little. I'm holding the bobble in the middle of my hand. Shouldn't be too small, because that doesn't really give you enough of a response. And you don't want it too long, because then you can douse with a longer length, but it's not as effective. So you want to find something somewhere in the middle. And then really you just want to ask basic questions. So mine's already moving because I douse all the time. So you can keep the pendulum still, and it may only move very, very slightly at the beginning. So don't give up. That's the thing with dowsing. You just practice until the response comes. But if you do a meditation before you douse, then your energy will be more balanced, and you'll hopefully get a stronger response. So if you ask a question, so if I ask a question like, is my name, I try and hold it still, but my hand will normally follow. Is my name Pink Elephant? It will just go no. My hand will follow the energy of the pendulum. So it's almost impossible to hold it so tightly that to prove to somebody else. That's the thing. You need to let go of that whole kind of ego-based structure. And then if I say now, is my name Jamie? It will just move. And yes, it's my hand moving, but the thing is, it's a subconscious response. It's not me trying to force a response. And that's the most important thing with dowsing. And you can ask questions. In fact, the questions are the most important thing with conscious communication with the field. So for example, you can ask, does it meet with the higher flow to go and see my friend today? I mean, it's a bit of a general question, that one. You can calibrate with the pendulum, and I don't want to get into too much complexity here, but you can also ask it, or ask yourself, really, as your inner being. So when I say ask it, I'm talking about your inner being. You can also use the pendulum to if you get, you can download them on the internet, like a numbers chart. You can hold the pendulum over a chart, and you can have a percentage, say 0 to 100. And then you could ask, for example, what's the percentage, let's say, for example, what's my percentage hydration? But you'd have to say, for example, 100% is fully hydrated. You need to be clear in your consciousness about what you're asking, and 0 is dehydrated. So that's called calibration. So then you would hold the pendulum over the middle, and then I'm going to show you just very quickly on a chart that I have. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but hopefully you will. Just want to give you a more concrete example. And so let me can I tilt the screen down? I'm just going to tilt the screen down for a second. Okay, so this, for example, you may see this upside down. There's a numbers chart, and it goes from 0 to 100. So I'm going to tell myself, or my higher self, this is dehydrated, 0, and 100% is hydrated. So if I ask what percentage hydration am I, it's already pointing between 90 and 100%, which is good. And then if I ask a question like, okay, so does it meet with a higher flow for me to drink coffee right now? No. And then if I say, if I drink a cup of coffee, what would be my level of hydration? So it's already dropping down to between 70 and 80%, Spirit's telling me. So this is where you start to have a lot of fun. You can start to gain information from your inner being. You start to see truth rather than what you want to see. So that's the fascinating thing about dowsing, is that with the very simple tools, you can start to open up your your awareness and your consciousness. So I just wanted to give you a little taster, really, that this is something that you can practice with in your own time. And I do it with my 6-year-old son. So to help his intuition, what you can do with a friend, but the friend must be supportive, is you could take 3 cups and you could place an object that's hid under the cup. Your friend will place an object and you mustn't look, and then move the cups around, and you can try and find out under which cup is the object. And you will heighten your sense of intuition. I do it with like I said, my son who's 6, and he actually gets it right 90% of the time, which is a high rate. And it shows that there's something real in the biology going on, that we can read information beyond the physical senses. And I think that's a great way to start to listen to your body and to honor there's actually the yes/no response. If you think of computers, the binary response is very powerful. Look what we can do with computers. And if you don't have a pendulum on you, you can also put your hand on your heart, and you can say to your body, this is yes, just moving the body forward and back, and you can say this is no, just a very, very small signal. And if you have an important decision, it's interesting, if you ask with pure heart or intention, the body will immediately do it before you start thinking. So that's also a tip from me about how you can get started to magnify your own inner wisdom that's lying in your heart.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's such a gift that your son has to be able to be, a lot of times children are told, if you can't see it, it's not real. And so, being able to have them blossom with both sides of their brain being nurtured at the same time. I did this with my children with cars when we would be driving. Like, what's the license plate that you're going to see next? Or, what's the color of car that'll be around the corner? What's the stoplight going to be? And it helps, I think, so much for them to be able to know that there's a field that they're all generating and part of. And so what a gift your son has to have you as a dad. That's lovely. So do you offer coaching programs so people can join to really own their own self-transformation?
Yes, for me, what I try to do with my clients is give them the tools that they can then magnify their own intuition, because that's so fundamental. When I sit in session with somebody, really what I'm doing is being a mirror, or as much as I can, a pure reflective mirror. And yes, I get information, downloads, or messages from my high self, but really there has to be resonance for the client. So people can work with me if they would like to. I'm always very happy to help people on their journey, and people are on different stages. And some are just beginning, and some are quite seasoned and are doing a lot more yoga and breath work. So if they go to my website, which is energytherapy.biz, and go under online sessions, there's a couple of ways to work with me. One is just to have a normal session, where we go into the life history and the health history, and I use dowsing, and I listen to the client and what's going on in the background, the archetypal energies, and look at the Akashic record, because we're constantly downloading information from the field, and we run programs. We can call them energies, we can call them thoughts, but we're constantly triggered by our environment. And then really my vision over the next few years, what Spirit's given me, is to really work with group consciousness. So I have a program called Total Frequency Shift, and it's a beautiful program because it teaches many different aspects that I've really learned over the last 20 years, from eye health, maintaining eye health and improving it, to rebuilding the spine, maintaining spinal alignment in yoga. I actually damaged my spine in my 20s as well, and I couldn't walk, and my whole pelvis would slip, and I had to rebuild my whole spine. So I know a lot about the spine and pelvis, and then plant-based diets and how that impacts energy, and how to really get into sort of mindful flows. Very simple, very easy, 10-minute deep dives into consciousness, because everybody's overwhelmed today. And so the last thing we need is a huge amount of information and energy thrown at us, because we never do it. But if we can start with just 10 or 15 minutes a day, that can be very cumulative, and as we integrate that, it becomes very synergistic. So my new program called Total Frequency Shift is about that journey of consciousness. So to lead the group through all of these practices and then have them integrate in a very balanced way and do just 10 minutes a day.
We're coming to the end of our time. And as we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to make sure that you share with our audience?
I'd like to say that be very conscious of your values and what you bring into your life, because sometimes we're operating from old beliefs that are handed down to us, and that actually blocks our intuition, because then we're not true to ourselves. And so if you can get back in touch with who you really are and what your true purpose is. So your true purpose comes to you through what you love, actually, most of the time. And if you can link that with service, or if you can link that with love, then life will open up. And quite often, when you do find out what it is, you will probably have a bit of fear, because fear is the opposite polarity. But if you can come back in touch with the values that are deep within you, that was given to you as a soul, then anything that you're not living, anything that you are living, which is not helpful to you or is disconnecting you, that will drop away. And so I would just encourage you in this kind of information age as well to be very mindful of the breath. So when you wake up in the morning, to not switch on your phone, to just stay with the breath and to notice the quality of your energy in the morning. Like what are you carrying? Is your body tired? Is it stressed? Or is it refreshed and energetic? And have moments of pause where you can just be really connected and still, because stillness is that gateway, that still point that opens everything up for you.
Well, I think that's a beautiful final word, and we really appreciate having Jaime Tanna here with us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and it's been such a gift. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Keesha.